guys, what is going on, and welcome back to What Shall We Do Next. I'm Mike, your host, and I hope you guys are having the best day ever. Before I get started, guys, if you are new here, please subscribe if you haven't already done that. We're on the road to 93,000 subscribers, and I would love you to join me on this journey. So hit subscribe and join the fam. And also, guys, go follow me on all my social media. Links are in the description. I have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Snapchat, so go follow me in all of those. And as you guys know, I recently started a Facebook account, so you can add me on Facebook and we can be Facebook friends, so go do that. Link is in the description. And finally, be sure to turn on the notification bell right next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you! But once again, I am coming back at you guys with another creepy video, and today we are talking about another creepypasta. And this creepypasta is called Laughing Jack. So the story of Laughing Jack is a scary creepypasta story about a mother who discovers that her young son has an imaginary friend, which is, of course, a clown. But enough of the jibber jabber, let's get right over to the story. Laughing Jack. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard. He was a quiet boy and played by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but he has always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I wondered who he could be talking to. Could he have finally found a friend? Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. James was alone in the backyard. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. "James, it's time to come inside," I called out to him. He came in and sat down at the kitchen table. "James, who are you talking to out there?" I asked. James looked up for a moment. "I was playing with my new friend," he said, smiling. "Oh, does your friend have a name?" I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying. "His name is Laughing Jack." "Oh, that's a strange name," I said. "So what does your friend look like?" "He's a clown," James replied. "He has long hair and a big swirly cone nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles." I realized that my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it is normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. The rest of the day was uneventful. As it was starting to get late, I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn on his nightlight before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed not long after. I had an awful nightmare. It was dark. I was in some kind of rundown amusement park. I was scared, running through an endless field of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, all with sick grins stitched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly, I began to hear music play. The sound of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to the circus tent, almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey thought it was all in fun. The music box stopped right before its climax, and suddenly the light shot on. They were blinding, and all I could see was a small dark silhouette shuffling towards me. Then another one appeared, and another, and another. There were dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move, my legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see that they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their body. Others were severely burnt. And others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground and tearing inside me. As the children tore me apart and I faded away, all I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James's action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these here. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James's room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back into his toy box and headed down to the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him breakfast. He was pretty quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. "James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning?" His eyes shot up at me for a moment, then quickly glanced back down to his cereal. "Laughing Jack did it." I rolled my eyes and responded, "Well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room." James nodded and finished up his breakfast, then decided to go and play out in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room, and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple of hours later. I was a bit worried. I needed to check on James. It had been over 2 hours and I hadn't seen him. I stepped out into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him. "James? James, where are you?" Just then, I heard a giggle coming from the front yard. I rushed through the gate around to the front of the house, and James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. "James, how many times have I told you, stay in the backyard?" "James, what are you eating?" James looked up at me, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of hard candies. This made me very nervous. "James, who gave you that candy?" James just stared at me, not speaking. "James," I cried, "please tell Mommy where you got that candy." James hung his head down and said, "Laughing Jack gave it to me." My heart sunk. I knelt down to look him in the eye. "James, I have had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He is not real. Now this is a very serious situation and I need to know who gave you that candy." I could see my son's eyes tearing up. "But Mama, Laughing Jack did give me the candy." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James had never lied to me before, but what he was telling me was impossible. I made him spit out the candy, and I threw the rest away. James appeared to be fine. Maybe I was just overreacting. That night, I put James to bed as usual, and decided to go to bed early myself. Suddenly, I was woken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprang out of bed and hurried down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters were thrown onto the floor, and the dead body of our dog Vito was hanging from the light fixture. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type of candy that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James's room, followed by a loud crash. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed on the floor. My poor son, in his bed crying, shaking with fear. A pool of urine staining the sheets. I scooped my child up and ran out of the house and went next door to the neighbor's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained to them what had happened. They looked at me as if I was crazy. They searched the house, but all they found was a dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. The officer told me that someone had probably gotten into the house and done this, making a quick escape when they heard me coming up the stairs. I knew it wasn't true. All the doors were locked and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went into the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes into his room tonight, I'm going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised him that I wasn't gonna let anything happen to him. So I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the nightlight before closing the door. I whispered to him, "Good night, James, I love you." I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I lay my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise coming from the baby monitor I had put on my nightstand. At first it sounded like interference, like the kind a radio would make. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it. The laugh from my nightmare. That horrible laugh. I jumped out of my bed and grabbed the knife. I rushed over to James's room and creaked the door open. I tried the light switch, but it wouldn't come on. I took a step in, and I could feel a warm, thick liquid on my feet. Suddenly, James's nightlight came on, and I could see the absolute horror laid out in front of me. James's body was nailed up on the wall, the nails piercing through his hands and feet. His chest was cut wide open, and his organs hung down to the floor. His eyes and his tongue had been removed, along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe that this was my baby boy. Then I heard it again. The soft, desperate moan. James was still alive. My baby, my poor baby, in so much pain, barely clinging to life. I ran across the room and vomited on the floor, but my sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I spun around while still wiping bile from my mouth. Then out of the shadow emerged the fiend responsible for all his horror, Laughing Jack. His ghost white skin and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a row of sharp, jagged teeth, and his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeves and socks. His body itself was grotesque, his long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh, as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction to his work. He then turned around slowly in front of James and began to laugh even more at the horrific sight he had laid out. That was enough to shake me from my terror. "Get away from him," I snapped. I rushed at the monster, raising the knife above my head, and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared like a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through him and pierced James's still beating heart, splashing the warm blood on my face. No, what have I done? My baby! I killed my baby! I immediately fell to my knees and I could hear sirens in the distance growing louder. My boy, my sweet baby boy. I promised Mommy would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. Police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, still wielding the knife covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short. I was found not guilty by reason of insanity. I was placed in a mental home for the criminally insane, where I have been for the last 2 months. It's not so bad here. The only reason I'm awake now is because someone is playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning.
And that is the end of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. As always, Laughing Jack is an awesome creepypasta. I actually once took part in another creepypasta about Laughing Jack that was on another person's channel. I can't even remember. I'm gonna have to look for that because it was really cool. It was like the Christmas, and I played one of the main characters too. Like, it was like a voiceover. There was a bunch of us. I think even Mr. Nightmare was part of it. I'm definitely gonna look for that because that was a long time ago. That was like back in 2014 I did that. But it was definitely an awesome thing, and I love Laughing Jack. He's so messed up, man, but it's also like kind of like Jeff the Killer, in a sense. Like, they have similarities to them. But my question to all of you for question of the day is, do you like Laughing Jack? Let me know in the comment section. That is question of the day. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please slap a like on it. Let's see if we can go for 70 billion likes on this video. I would really appreciate that. And if you guys didn't see my previous video, be sure to check it out here. When the outro comes on, you can click it on this side. Or if you just want to watch another random video, you can click this side and it will do that too. But remember the most important thing of all, guys, chase your dreams. I love you all. Don't let anybody bring you down, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another video. Peace out.